Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. My name is Isaiah and today we are having the SEX talk. That's right, today I am your father. And to immediately make that less uncomfortable, I'm actually making this video as the start of a primer for young or ignorant aces, as I've noticed there's been an extreme lack of sexual education targeted towards the ace community in particular. It will also hopefully be a resource for allosexual people to use as well, specifically to either broaden their own understanding of asexual targeted language or because they're interested in dating an ace person themselves. And this is also just the first video I'm making on this. I realized as I was writing everything out and thinking about what I wanted to talk about that I could make an hour-long video touching upon everything with all of my thoughts, but my executive dysfunction is immediately just, no, you're going to take forever to get that done, and you've already spent like 2 hours on this today trying to record just off the cuff. Or a big hour-long video is going to be way less accessible, even with timestamps, than a grab bag where someone can see, oh, this one's on language, this one's about penises, this one's about vaginas, this one's about what happens if you're trans and you're having sex, that sort of thing. And it also gives me more time to do more research into some of the things I'm less familiar about. So I thought I would make a shorter video today and focus it on one topic, and instead of making a full half-assed product in one day. But let's stop waffling around and actually focus on what the video is about, which today is going to be mostly about the a specific language. So, starting with, what is sex? Sex tends to cover a lot of intimate acts, but for the sake of this video and future videos, we are going to be discussing primarily sex in terms of masturbation, either alone or with a partner, vaginal, oral, anal sex, kissing, rubbing your bodies together, or using sex toys. There are other things that might come up like sexting, or as it was called back in my day, cybering, or watching, reading porn, or even kinkster BDSM communities. But like I said, this is going to mostly be a primer, and this one in particular is just the language, so I wanted to get that out of the way. And I don't think I could even have an exhaustive or definitive discussion on everything about sex, because like I don't think there can be a definitive end to sex education. At the end of the day, this isn't a one size fits all shirt. I mean, not only are those shirts ugly as hell, but they aren't even one size fits all. But why even have a conversation about sex with ace people? Because like the stereotype is ace people don't even want to have sex. They're disgusted by it. But that's just the stereotype. Asexuality is a term that describes people who just don't experience sexual attraction. It's an orientation. It gets conflated a lot with celibacy, where celibacy is the choice to refrain from sexual activity, but celibacy is a choice. Asexuality is not. Now, you can be asexual and celibate, but you can also be allosexual, which is someone who experiences sexual attraction, and celibate as well. Like, more power to you. And while we're talking about this sexual attraction stuff, there isn't just sexual attraction. In mainstream LGBT stuff, heterosexual stuff, we tend to conflate sexual and romantic attraction together. And the AceMP communities, asexual and aromantic, ended up creating a split attraction model that describes romantic and sexual attraction individually. There has been pushback on it, as there is with everything, and I would notice it's mostly from people who are aphobes, people who don't like the AceMP community, or think that ace and aro people are heterosexual people trying to become LGBT. But it's dumb. There is nothing wrong with wanting to get more specific with your language. I personally have nothing against micro labels, and I would argue the split attraction model is kind of the start of the idea of micro labels. I don't use micro labels myself. I no longer use the split attraction model unless I'm getting really specific in a conversation within an already accepting community, but it's still something fun to know about, and it's something that could be useful for allosexual people too, if only so that they could get a deeper understanding of their own sexuality. But that's all besides the point, because there's not only two types of attraction, the romantic and sexual attraction. There's actually six broader categories of attraction, which include romantic and sexual attraction, but it also includes aesthetic, sensual, emotional, and intellectual attraction. Since we already know about romantic and sexual attraction, I'm going to describe the other ones real quick just because it's fascinating and it's part of this broader talk on language as a whole. Aesthetic attraction is an appreciation for the appearance or beauty of another person. It doesn't have to have anything to do with sexual or romantic attraction. It's actually why I laugh at the idea of men, is it gay to like another man's body? And everyone's like, no, it is totally gay. But no, aesthetic attraction can easily explain why cis heterosexual men can look at another man in the gym and be like, damn, that man's been working on his body. Look at the muscles. And it's not gay. And it's also why I have an aesthetic attraction for thick curly hair and I love to draw it, but I'm terrible at it. um, Sensual attraction is the desire to interact with each other in a tactile, non sexual way. So, hugging, cuddling, laying on top of each other on the couch. You don't necessarily have to be sexually or romantically attracted to someone to want that close touch. There are extremely tactile people. They would be people that experience sensual attraction. Emotional attraction is used to describe the desire to get to know someone, primarily through their personality and not necessarily on their appearance. It is extremely common with sexual or romantic attraction, but is also common with friends and queer platonic relationships. There's actually a really good example of emotional attraction that is from this clip of BoJack Horseman.
That's really funny. You're funny.
Really?
Oh my God, you should be on TV. Which, holy shit, they're flat now.
Actually, I was on. You know what? I'm sick of talking about me. Let's talk about you.
I don't want MBN to just be another boring old network. You know what I mean?
Yes, totally.
I want to take risks. I want to swing for the fences, you know? Otherwise, what are we doing?
Oh my God, is it morning? We stayed up all night talking and we didn't even have sex.
BoJack is experiencing for the first time an emotional attraction towards another person, whereas usually he just like uses someone sexually and then he's done with them. Intellectual attraction is actually also shown in this clip because he is excited to engage with her intellectually, picking her brain, so to speak. And that's another, it's not sapiosexual. Sapiosexual is a sexual orientation dedicated towards sexual orientation, using air quotes there. It's dedicated towards the sexual attraction towards intelligence. So it's just it's nothing to do with sexual or romantic stuff. It's just wanting to engage with someone on an intellectual level, be it debating or picking their brain or anything like that. So with attraction is done. The next thing is asexual people tend to fall into three broad categories in attitudes towards sex. It would be sex favorable, sex neutral, or sex repulsed. Notably, we do try to use terminology like favorable and repulsed versus sex positive and negative, which are more broader political commentaries on sex, attitudes towards sex, where sex positive may be pro sex work, pro sex education, and sex negative you can see in evangelical Christianity and in the US education system as a whole. So, what do these mean? Sex favorable is someone who enjoys the act or thought of sex. They may choose to seek it out, they may choose to masturbate, they may engage in the acts just to deepen a relationship or because they like the physical sensation of sex. Sex neutral people, they're pretty indifferent. They don't care one way or the other. They may choose to engage in it for the sake of a partner, or to relieve stress, or to procreate, or they may just, that it's just not a big deal in their lives. And sex repulsed people, or sex averse, tend to be people who are repulsed or dislike the idea of sex. And it can be anything from them not liking the idea of sex including them, or it could be just a general attitude of sex is a big fat no. They don't want to think about it because it's gross. And asexual people don't necessarily fit into one of these boxes their entire life. They can fluctuate from being not sex positive, but sex favorable to sex repulsed in one day, or vice versa, or it really depends. But it's a good way to describe your attitude towards sex generally, especially when you are pursuing or interested in a relationship with like an allosexual partner. Allosexuality, we already talked about it a minute before, but it's literally just the opposite of asexuality. The term came about because we didn't want to, in ace specific discussions, we didn't want to talk about asexual and then normal people, because asexuality is normal. We also didn't want to say asexual or sexual, because the idea of calling people who experience sexual attraction could be, calling them sexual could be dehumanizing, turning them into a sexual object, or it can conflate the idea of sexual attraction with sexual activity. When we do have allosexual people who do experience these greater feelings towards sex, where they may be favorable or repulsed by it, in a similar way to asexual people, which again is why I think it's so important to understand this language, because it's not necessarily only applicable to aspec people, but it could be applicable to allosexual people to give them a better understanding of how their sexual attraction fluctuates, why it does, what's happened. But allosexual people is literally anybody who experiences sexual attraction. Um, Generally, and this is a really big generalization, allosexual people will also have a need to be more sexually intimate. It is something that they may require to feel fulfilled in a relationship. And that's something asexual people may not be aware of. Not getting one's sexual intimacy needs met is actually a big reason for cheating and for divorce. I'm not excusing people who cheat or divorce, because, well, I'm divorce one thing. I'm not excusing people who cheat, because when you choose to cheat, it's still a choice. You're not being forced into it. And it is a sign of greater relationship problems and an entire lack of communication. Everything to do with relationships is about communication. If you don't communicate, you shouldn't be in a relationship. But this lack of knowledge of one's own intimacy is something I've noticed a lot in purity culture, and why there's some scary beliefs in stuff like evangelical Christianity or other religions, where like marital rape isn't a thing in some more fundamental religions, because these people as teens were not taught to explore their bodies and figure out their sexual needs, and then they grow up and they get married to have sex. Sometimes you see this a lot in like Mormonism, where they will get married extremely young to have sex, because they weren't allowed to have sex or explore themselves as teens. And after they get married, they realize that their sexual drives or sexual needs are not simpatico with each other. Luckily, divorce is becoming more common and less of a taboo in evangelical Christianity, but it still does face some extremely harsh criticism. And I think it is extremely dumb of these religions to close with this all off and then make people have to go through this legal divorce and potentially tear families apart. You know, it's just all bad. And when a lot of these issues could be solved through learning about yourself and having open communication with your partner first. So that's going to be the end for now. I wanted this to focus mostly on the language about asexual experiences and attitudes towards sex, as well as talk a little bit about why it's so important to be open and communicating with your partners about your needs. So, like, if you are an asexual person and an allosexual person is interested in going out with you, at some point you will have a conversation about sexual needs, probably sooner than later if you're out as being ace. And it's hard, honestly, especially if you're an ace person who does not like the idea of sex, because it feels like all the doors are being shut. But if you understand your language and how to express it, and you understand your own needs and attitudes towards sex, it will help you out in the long run. And that's why I'm making these video series. How many times am I going to say that? Um, if you did find this video useful at all, please let me know. Subscribe. I'm going to be trying to post these things maybe once a week. And I would love to get feedback on this information in particular. Like, is there any language terminology that you think should be defined in future videos? What would you like to see? Do you want to have videos that specifically talk about reproductive hygiene, birth control, how hormone therapy for trans people may affect fertility or libido, how that intersects with asexuality, how libidos and that sort of thing interact with asexuality, how masturbation can be a stress relief, that sort of thing. If you want to hear anything like that, please let me know in the comments. I would love to hear from y'all. I would love to just discuss this stuff further because it's something that's fascinating to me in a almost purely academic sense as an asexual who was terrified of sex growing up and eventually bit the bullet and got to learn about it. So, but thank you so much for listening. I will stop rambling now, as I tend to do. Stay hydrated, stay safe, and I will talk to y'all tomorrow. Bye bye.